edition of OM3 Things with our friend with a beautiful hat, Mr. Joakim Noah. How are you feeling, sir?
Freezing, man. I'm cold.
You're sitting at beautiful Miami Beach. 70. We just checked this. 74 degrees. Feels like 71 with the wind. How's life right now? What's going on in your world?
A lot of kids, bringing the kids to school, and got a young one just wants his mom every 3 hours. So, sleep, not a lot of sleep. But you know what? I've been watching a lot of the games, and this cup thing is awesome. Just the competitiveness of the games is so dope.
So, all right, I wanted to bring this up with you. So you're overall a fan of the cup and this process in general.
Man, I love it. Like, the games are so competitive. I'm seeing guys taking hard fouls. Like, guys are into it. It's competitive. As a fan, that's all you want.
Do you think there's a part of this? This is a little bit, feels like it's going to be a little bit of it's obviously only the second year of this. It feels a little weird even compared to last year, where a lot of the teams that were there last year were teams that weren't, too surprising. I guess Indiana maybe a little bit, but everybody else who ended up there were sort of teams that we sort of considered like upper echelon teams. Like this year, it may be Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, who we're going to get to. Do you feel like for some of these younger teams, there's an element of like, they haven't been to the playoffs with these groups, and so they're almost preparing for this like it is like a playoff series?
Yeah, I mean, this is how you bring your group together. Competitive games is what brings unity. And especially for these young teams who never felt the playoffs before, it kind of gives you a vibe and a frequency that you have to play at on a consistent basis, especially, come playoff time. So I think that this cup is just icing on the cake. It's just making the competitiveness that much better early on in the season.
What do you think about the dynamic with like the points for and against and all that stuff? Because you're kind of like juggling that in real time while you're playing or coaching or whatever.
Yeah, I don't really care about that part too much. I just know that the guys are getting bigger, getting a bag when they get to Vegas. So I know that guys are playing extra hard because, that's money that your financial advisor is not counting against. So they can have a lot of fun with that money.
I was going to say, just make sure you leave Vegas with it.
Exactly.
The first team I think we wanted to hit of the three today is a team we talked about a couple of weeks ago, but they kept winning and hooping even with some changes, and that's the Orlando Magic. They're 15-7 overall, third in the East. 12-1 since Paolo has been out, and we've given Paolo his love already on the show, and we will continue to do so. Your overall thoughts on this borderline shocking performance, I'd say, missing a player of his caliber?
No, I think it's beautiful what they're doing over there. Just won, 12 out of their 13 games. That's good numbers, but I think that right now it's about roles are changing a little bit because you don't have your top scorer. I think guys are moving the ball and they're holding it down. They're holding the fort down until their big dog comes back, and they've been doing it really well. So I think that as long as they keep that humble approach, knowing that roles are going to change when Paolo comes back, I think that they also have. Franz is playing at a really, really high level, so their wings are set for a really long time, and Orlando's defense is no joke.
Yeah, I'll get to the wings thing in a second. So right now they're 22nd offense, second in defense, 8th in net. It feels like the offensive number is going to go up when Paolo comes back, around Christmas or whenever that may be. Do you feel like this changes your not to be too prediction-y, but your overall thought of this team's ceiling and trajectory for the year, them being able to do this without him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now, if you're part of that group, your confidence is sky high. I mean, your top player is out. He's coming back. He had a great start of the year. I think guys are feeling good about themselves. They got a lot of reps up without him. They feel like they can win without him. Now, you add a player like that to your roster, when it comes to the playoffs, it's all about matchups. And having Paolo on you'll be really happy to have Paolo in a 7-game series. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Franz before. He's right now at 27.2 points a game, 7 assists, 5 5 rebounds. He's the first player in franchise history to hit those numbers. Crazy thing though, I wanted to bring up to you about his two-way ability. He's leading the league in turnover frequency on defense with guys against him. So he's getting it both ways. This feels, Franz has been a great player since he joined the league, but this feels like a little bit of a different level for him than where he's been at.
Turnover frequency, that now you're that's too, I don't understand.
So he forces the most turnovers in one-on-one situations of any player in the NBA right now.
That's good. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. You tell me. Talking about defensive player of the year, you tell me.
I mean, frequency. I never heard frequency on defense.
Bro, there's so many stats like this that it's kind of like everyone is saying the stat is good, so we just have to assume that it's good.
It's gotta be good.
It's got to be good. It seems like it's good, but it is also kind of funny because you're like, I don't. Sometimes you're like, how do you actually determine some of these things?
Well, 12-1, we can definitely. That's definitely a good number right there.
Yeah. Are you like when you like look at you just mentioned the team building with the wings, and you like look at the East, or you look at the whole NBA, but you look at the East in particular with Boston. I mean, it seems like it's possibly, and even though they beat them yesterday, it's possibly an issue with Cleveland in that position. It feels like basically you need, even Atlanta is coming up, you need like these big wings to win. Does that just feel for you when you're watching this stuff like a necessity and a period point where like if you don't have that, you just are not going to be in the conversation in May?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play in the big games, you got to be solid everywhere. And I'll tell you what, who else is balling that I really like is that guy Suggs, man. He's so competitive. He sets the tone every single time the opposing team is going up the court. He's turning guys 2-3 times. Like Suggs' competitive spirit, it drips on that whole team. I love it. I love the way that they're competing because of him.
Do you notice? So is that a thing that you're noticed? Just his like point of attack defense, like because he just is. I saw someone talking about this yesterday. During the Nets game, he's like an old school player. He plays like a guy from like the 90s almost in terms of like he's like fighting through every screen. You know what you're going to get from him on that side of the ball every time. Do you feel like that is just as like from a defensive leadership standpoint is the guy that really sets the tone for them?
I think it's so important when your point guard is picking up full court. What that does to your team, I mean, it's the first stop. So seeing a guy who's going to turn the offensive player who's bringing up the court 2-3 times. I mean, if that doesn't make you want to play hard, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and don't you? And from your experience, is there an element too? I mean, it's just like straight up like you're gonna gas guys that way. Yeah, you can see it even with the performance of some of the top guards against that team, and they got KCP now. They're throwing a lot of good defensive wings at you. But it's like if you're dealing with that from like minute one, and then you got to go back on the other side and defend Paolo and Franz, it's just a lot.
It's a lot going on, man. And you know what? I think that he's definitely a captain on that team. Suggs is really setting the tone. You're bringing that kind of energy consistently every night. I think that everybody else just has to follow suit, and I respect it.
The other guy I wanted to shout out, I wanted to see if there's anyone else in the team that sort of stood out to you. I wanted to shout out Mo Wagner, who's averaging career highs in scoring and shooting. And it's just like, his brother's going to be an all-star. He's a star. He's a star of Team Germany. Mo's been had a great NBA career, but he goes under the radar sometimes. But like, talk about bringing in energy off the bench. Like, and he's coming in scrapping. Like he's coming in not scared of anybody. And it feels like they have that whole mentality across the board.
Yeah, it's cool to see. And Germany also won that world championship. I think it gave those two brothers a lot of confidence. You could just tell. I got to watch a game really close. Shout out Donnie McGrath, Mike for giving me some really good seats watching the Orlando Magic game. But those two Wagner guys, man, the brothers, man, you can just tell the energy that they bring into their group. They're not scared of anything. They're playing high level. They just look like they're having fun out there as a group, and it's cool to see.
Has there been anyone else? You mentioned Jalen. Has there been anyone else on this group that just from you watching that has just stood out to you?
I like the kid Black.
Yeah, Anthony Black.
Anthony Black, I feel like he brings he locks up. He's somebody who's tough and he's knocking down the shots. So I think they needed some shooting, and he's definitely adding that.
Another team which we are going to talk about a lot, I feel like over the course of the year because they're not going anywhere. They had a loss last night, but they had a great, it was just a great game. It just felt like a playoff preview. Is the Oklahoma City Thunder, still first in the West. They're 15-5. Chet, since the last time we talked about them, Chet is out. Hartenstein's back. Just where you see them right now, where you see this defense in particular right now, in terms of just like when you're watching the games, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I watched the Rockets game against OKC yesterday. What a just great game. The Rockets are like must-watch TV right now. I love everything about them. I know we're talking about OKC, but you got to give the Rockets their flowers. Like that Amen Thompson kid is a dog. I love everything about him. I love watching him play. Sengun. It was a real battle yesterday with Hartenstein. And going back to OKC, I think that the fact that they played most of their games without any of their bigs this year says a lot about how good they are defensively. That's for sure. And now that you add in Hardenstein, who had a great playoff run last year with the Knicks, getting his legs under him, it's beautiful to see. He came in and he started balling right away, double doubles right away. I think one of his first plays I saw in the game, he goes for a block. He ends up on his back and comes back in the game and plays really well. I love Hardenstein's game, and I think that OKC is that. Like I think we all know that OKC is a top team, and they haven't even played with both their bigs yet.
Yeah, so so they obviously haven't played with the two of the guys together. They're 12-2 when either of them have played in a full game. It feels like a defense that really doesn't have any holes. And I want to talk about Lou again, but we've talked about Lou Dort already, on the show a little bit. What do you think when they're healthy with the two bigs? How do you see that working?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I think that they're versatile enough to be able. You can play both bigs. You could play Chet on the wing a little bit. He can space the floor. Hardenstein can still be that roller. And what I like about Hardenstein is Shai is a type of player that's getting double teamed every night. He's that type of talent. So Hardenstein will be great on 3 and 4 opportunities. Once they trap Shai, him being able to have the ball and be able to make plays, throw the ball on the perimeter. I think that that's really one of the best parts of Hardenstein's game. So I'm excited to see more of that, and also seeing how Chet and that's two big guys being able to play on the court at the same time. I'm excited to see that.
It just feels like their flexibility is what makes them so tough. Like Jalen Williams, J-Dub, when those guys were both out, he's about 6'6", but he was playing the 5 for them, and he was like locking up, like he was playing great defensively. It feels like he's able to play like a free safety role almost now with the bigs back there. And so, I mean, the NBA is like fully positionless. We sort of know that already, but like, it feels like with this team in particular, like you just mentioned, Chet on the wing, like they all kind of do a lot of different stuff. And so it feels like it's harder to scheme against them in certain ways.
For sure. They can play small ball and they can play big ball. J-Dub's, he got a lot better already in his few years in the league. Just seeing his growth is amazing. I mean, I see a lot of talent on that team, and it'll be interesting to see what they do when those, because they can play big and they can also play small ball, and they've already played 20 games playing small ball.
Yeah, and Lou is able to sort of guard. I mean, do you think it's fair to say he can guard 1 through 5? Like it feels like he's so physically big. He has the ability basically to kind of like body up with anyone.
He can play 1 through 5. I think he can front the post. As soon as there's a 50-50 ball, they're on top of all of that. I feel like OKC always gets all of the 50-50 ball. It's just this is a team that's competitive, that's been playing together, and they're going to be a tough out.
What do you like about just watching Shai, just as a fan?
More than the scoring is unbelievable. He's a real floor general out there. He's always making the right play. He plays to win, but real superstar, and his swagger, the way he carries himself. But I think he's just somebody who really has the ball on a yo-yo, and somebody who can just make his teammates better.
Have you noticed this with just, I think guards in particular over the years? There are guys, people have talked about his numbers have, obviously been great the last couple of years. But his like efficiency, and he's not the only one on this team, but he's probably the most efficient player in the NBA at this point. But he also just he just feels like he's smooth and in control all the time. Can you see that when you're playing against somebody where it just becomes a thing where like there's a lot of great players, but you can kind of like, you can either get under their skin or whatever's happening, and they may like lose control for a little bit. It just feels like the game is almost slowed down for him.
The game definitely slowed down for him. I mean, honestly, I love everything about him. There was a play yesterday where him and the guy on the Rockets, they go for the loose ball.
With Brooks. Where they're laughing?
Oh, my God. They're laughing, but they're not giving up the ball either. That competitive spirit, man, you usually don't see that in an early December game. So I love everything about the competitive spirit. Those guys are they play on the national team in Canada together. And for them to see that kind of competitive spirit, even with your brothers, I think it just shows how serious guys want to win.
So you mentioned the Rockets before. Both these teams, OKC's been doing it for a few more years, but the Rockets are now clearly developing this as well. Just the culture and the next man up mentality of, we talked about about Thompson and Tari Eason and that bench and what they've given them so far this year. But both these teams, it feels like they're bigger than the individuals on the roster, which is not always the case, even with great teams. And so is that a thing, as they're growing this, that feels like one of their biggest advantages is just there's an element of it doesn't almost really matter. You want to be healthy, but it doesn't really matter who's playing because it feels like everyone is just bought in.
I mean, I think that's important. You want everybody to be bought in, but you want to have your best players playing in the big games. It's hard to win without them, and I think that OKC is able to do it because they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth, but not every team is built that way. Most teams, one bad injury and your hopes are it's over.
Did you watch Brooks play much at Memphis? Did you cross over with him at all or no?
I did. That's my rook.
Shout out. How was he as a rook?
He was awesome, man. I actually really enjoyed playing with him. He's just competitive kid, really wants to win. And, I think that a lot of people think that it's just his antics get in the way sometimes, but I think that he's just, at the end of the day, as a teammate, I want to have people who have that spirit, that competitive spirit. I think it's awesome. It's awesome for the game. And I love watching that kind of energy.
Anytime I've talked to anyone who's played with him, and I don't know anyone who played with him in college, but who played with him professionally or even with the Canadian team, they're just like, there's no coincidence that all his teams win. He just is like, the way he plays is like conducive to winning because he's a great teammate. And the stuff he does is even if it bothers the person you're playing against, it's like, so what? That's the point.
I love it. I think that's a frequency to me. That's a spirit a different kind of spirit. And you can tell his teammates love it. I see the young guys, like he made a big play yesterday. I see the way his teammates react towards that big shot he hit at the end of the game. It says a lot about him. The antics aren't getting in the way of, his teammates like his competitive fire and they're riding with him.
Yeah. The last team we'll hit is another young team who's not necessarily at the level of OKC or Houston yet, but they are, definitely trending in the right direction. That's the Pistons. They're 9-13 on the year, but they're 3-0, like we mentioned, in the NBA Cup games. And especially when you compare them to where they were last year, it's hard to not be optimistic about some of the stuff happening there.
Yeah. I mean, big shout out to JB Bickerstaff, one of my favorite coaches I got to play with. It was the end of my career. I wasn't happy playing basketball, and he gave me an opportunity to play in Memphis. And I'm really happy that I had that year. He just he was so easy to play for. Somebody who just gave me an opportunity right away, and I got nothing but love for him. And just for him to have 9 wins this early in the season, I can't remember the last time the Pistons, were even playing competitive games. So it's cool to see those kids really definitely went through a lot, especially after losing so many games last year. So for them to they look like they're enjoying playing basketball. So I just got to give a shout out to the new coach. Shout out JB Bickerstaff.
This time last year, they were 2-18.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get their third win until New Year's Day. So just on its face, it's been a massive improvement. Are there individual guys, probably Cade and Jaden in particular, that you've noticed a specific jump from?
I like the big fella. I like Durant.
Yeah, Jalen.
He's a boy. He's a problem. Looks like he can block everything. You can tell he's a competitive spirit. Obviously, Cade Cunningham, I think, really made that jump too. I mean, he's not playing around point guard with that size. Like he can do everything on the court. And I just feel like he handled that losing early on in his career really well. And for him to just, that's a tough position to be a kid. Usually when you come into the NBA, you're not used to losing at all. You've never really lost. So just to have that kind of adversity that early on in his career, have to stay professional, stay locked in, and now be able to play in games where you have an opportunity to play in Vegas early on, that's a team that could really benefit for going to Vegas. A team that really hasn't won in a long time, and now you're playing in some big games that matter.
Yeah, and both Cade and Ivey, their shooting is way up. Jaden Ivey was not great, shooting the ball last year. He's shooting 38% from 3 this year. And to your point, it feels like they blocked out a lot of the noise and the bullshit and whatever, and they just kind of got better. And people were sleeping on them, and I don't think they're going to keep sleeping on them, because they keep winning. This feels like a team they brought on a bunch of vets. Like they brought on Tim Hardaway Jr., they brought on Tobias, Malik Beasley, guys like that. It feels like that's probably been a beneficial thing too, just to have that like steadying force around them.
100%. I mean, having some good vets, it means everything. Those are guys in the locker room when there's adversity that can go back to moments they had in their careers and just, speak on it. So I think that it brings a certain like stability to the locker room that's much needed, especially in a team that lost so much last year.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch. Before we go, what else are you watching right now? Not basketball. Are you still on Ted Turner?
Ted Turner. What else? What else have I been watching? I haven't watched it yet, but the Yellowstone. I'm interested in that.
You're about to. That's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. It just is long. Like it's gonna take you a minute, I think, to get, which is good because you don't want to. Okay. It's not a 1 season thing. Is Ted Turner? Did you finish Ted Turner?
I didn't finish it yet. But
still into it?
I'm hell yeah, all in. I'm all in.
All right? Give the 30-second, because I haven't seen it. So to me, but then even to everyone else watching or listening or whatever, give the 30-second pitch on why to watch it.
It's a must watch because you got to understand where this television stuff comes from. This guy. Cable television came from a crazy guy who was a sailor. And I'll just tell a story that kind of resonated with me. Was the guy goes on a boat and he's on a sailing competition, and it's like one of the biggest competitions, and there's a huge hurricane and he gets caught. And so the police go to the wife's house and they say, your husband is out missing in the ocean. And the wife's response was, I got 3 kids at home, man. He's going to have to figure this out by himself. I'm like, holy shit, there's levels to this. This is the guy who started CNN. Like, this is the guy who started TNT. This guy's like us. It's a must watch.
I'm into it. All right, so this week we got to finish Ted Turner, we got Yellowstone, and we got NBA Cup. We're taping this Monday.
And Penguin? Don't sleep on Penguin.
Oh,
either.
Penguin's great. I finished Penguin. Yeah, Penguin's great. It's funny to think about Colin Farrell as him, but everything about it is great, and it's wild. They filmed that like years ago. Like they filmed it. I don't think before the pandemic, but they definitely filmed it like at least 3 years ago. Wow. And they just sat on it, and it hits, and it honestly makes me more interested in all the Batman stuff.
Yeah, I hope they do another sequel. I hope they do some more because that was really special.
All right, next week we're gonna get the Yellowstone check in, and I will have watched Turner at that point, so we'll get to that as well.
Respect, honey.
All right, brother. Peace.